You don't get to the truth that way. Starting from the bottom and working your way up, the bottom is not a good place to start. There are two ways to look at ourselves. Either I'm reality. Let's see what else there is. I'm real. I'm here. I have needs. That's reality. What can I make of this? How can I get the most out of this life? There are spiritual things that are beneficial and can elevate my life. So I use the spiritual to enhance my physical existence. It doesn't work. You don't get to the truth that way. Starting from the bottom and working your way up, the bottom is not a good place to start, in some sense. Start at the top and figure out how it all ended up with this. So in the beginning, there was nothing. And God created out of that nothing a whole bunch of things. And of course the question is why? Not how. Why is a very relevant question. Relevant because I'm here. Got to know why. How? What do I want to recreate the world? How did God create the world? Do I really care?
Right.
But getting to know God, which is a very important thing, means understand how he created, what he used to create, why he created it this way and not that way, all sorts of things that give you insight into him, not because I want to know how to create a world. If you start with him, everything makes sense. You start from the bottom. As much as you explain, it just doesn't make sense. It's not convincing.
If you're trying to prove it, that's what you mean.
Not prove it, but make sense out of it.
That's very interesting, because in this voyage that I'm trying to think of how to explain to somebody who's never seen the world of Kabbalah, and how to introduce it to them. So I've asked some people, and I have heard some voices which told me, oh, you need to start with how the soul is built, the nefesh of a person, how within us we have our 10 sefirot ourselves, the 10 midot, we have the intellectual aspects, the emotional, and then through that we understand the higher realms. But you're saying a very interesting point here. You're saying that we should be starting really from God. In other words, don't first examine me, you, the person, the world, and then through that try to understand God. Instead, we should first ask God how things worked, and then work our way down from there.
Well, instead of asking, this is a messed up world, how did we get so messed up? There's a creator. What happened? What happened to him? So not how did we end up like this? How did it begin? You're much safer. You're following a truer path. Because yes, there is him. And then from him, how, why, but stick to him. Follow his route. People who have no evil or people who have all sorts of human weaknesses. If you start from the bottom, people with human weaknesses make sense. That's what we're familiar with. That's what we know. That's what we experience. A human being without an evil inclination? What kind of saint is that? And do they really exist? And what are they hiding? Come on, you can't be that perfect, right?
Right.
Which means that the spiritual is not real. Physical is real.
Right.
Anything as it becomes less and less physical, it loses reality. It becomes vapor. Eventually, you're talking about God, you're talking about nothing. He's so spiritual, there's nothing left. That's not correct. In the beginning, there's God. What happened? So if you tell me, well, God created a world, and there are people who are very much like Him, feel like Him, want what He wants, they think like He thinks. So, okay. But there are also people who defy Him, who deny Him, who hate Him. Say, whoa, 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 how did that happen? That doesn't make sense. If God is the creator, what is all this? So out of desperation, you got to come up with Satan. He ruins everything. He's the destroyer. He's fighting God. He's the bad God. That's idolatry. Duality. Completely unacceptable. So what makes more sense? The non-physical or the physical? The non-physical makes much more sense. Especially in today's world. Like it used to be, if you didn't see it, how do you know it exists? Today, that kind of argument is so childish. Because we have discovered so much that we don't see. That explains reality. You can't see an electron. You can prove it exists by the effect that it has. No one ever saw an electron. And if they somehow create a microscope with which you can see an electron, no one will ever see a photon. Okay. In other words, the deeper you go, the less you see, the more real it becomes. The argument, oh, I never saw God. That's so childish. It's so unscientific. So we're slowly coming to realize the non-physical is real. The physical, how did that happen? So what do we know in Kabbalah? This thing called tzimtzum. There's this tzimtzum, a contraction of light that hides God, that covers up unholiness and ungodliness. And the result is things end up looking physical, material, ungodly, non-godly. It's brilliant. But it still doesn't explain, like, exactly. God is creating the world, but nothing looks godly. Concealment, hiding of the face. Come on, get real. So, correct. The hiding is not real. It's only apparent. Because God can't hide. Where's He going to go? If God wants to quit, where's He going to run away?
If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you haven't already, check out our full playlist on Hishtalshalos. Links in the description. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.